Cool, thanks everyone for joining. So we'll jump straight into things. I wanted to start off just so everyone in the room can kind of, we're gonna deep dive into a lot of subjects that are gonna get maybe possibly technical. So I just want everyone to get a quick outline on what the different companies here are working on. So I'll just let each of the panelists say a quick hello and their name and maybe 1 minute about what their company is working on right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Oliver Gale, CEO and co-founder of Panther Protocol. I'm in fact CEO and co-founder of Panther Ventures, which is the development company building Panther Protocol. So Panther is a multi-chain privacy protocol. We're enabling compliant access to DeFi smart contracts. So you can essentially take your ERC20 tokens or NFTs. You can interact with the Panther wallet, deposit those assets, receive Z assets, and then swap your assets on Uniswap or Aave, etc. The difference with a player like ourselves and the now infamous Tornado Cash would be that we have zero knowledge compliance schemes in place.
Hi everyone, this is Allison Wang. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Caradao. So basically, we do on-chain data analysis, and then we help projects to find their target audience. And in the future, we want to build a global identity network for people to kind of upload all their data onto the smart contract so people can communicate with like no problem. And the data will be very transparent.
Great. My name is Robert Grant, and I'm the CEO and founder of Crown Sterling. And we've created a new app called the Orion Messaging app. And it's the first decentralized quantum-resistant messaging app. And it's all about your data sovereignty and control of your data being in your hands, and a totally uncensorable platform that's distributed across nodal networks.
Hi everyone, my name is Clara Tao. I'm the founding director of the Filecoin Foundation. For those that might not be aware of Filecoin, we are a decentralized file storage platform, and the best way to know use of Filecoin is we actually have over 100 million NFTs stored on our technology. So if you likely own an NFT, you're already using IPFS and Filecoin. And we've been around the block since 2014 with IPFS. The Filecoin network launched in 2020. And we are just getting started with our ability to scale our solution to the decentralized cloud market and also to traditional Web 2 fields. And so one example is just a month ago, we launched the Decentralized Storage Alliance, where we have a lot of traditional storage partners like AMD, Seagate, Protocol Labs, and Ernst & Young coming on board to really store enterprise data on the decentralized web.
Awesome, thanks so much. So as you guys have probably noticed, the title is Deciphering On-Chain Data. So we're gonna really start from the ground layer, and I'll bring it back to you, Clara. Could you share a little bit more on Filecoin's side? What are some of the advantages or disadvantages on using on-chain or off-chain data storage?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know how technical the crowd is here, but some of you guys may have heard the word on-chain. And I actually think, I'll use a hot take here, I think on-chain is an overused buzzword that a lot of people use, but they may not fully understand what is underneath the layer, right? So what on-chain really means is that it's public, it's verifiable, and there are some benefits, but there's also downsides to it. So if you guys remember a few months ago when crypto was at its peak, a bunch of people were trying to buy land in the Otherverse on Bored Apes, and some people racked up over $6,000 in gas fees. And what happens is when you are trying to process something on-chain on the blockchain, that's what really on-chain means, you have a number of people that have to verify something is happening. And it's public, it's verifiable, it's considered more secure, but it's often very hard to scale. And that's why a lot of people were very worried. They put in a lot of money and they put in a lot of gas fees, and they weren't quite sure if they were actually going to get the outcome. I'm sure a lot of people were quite nervous as their transactions were processing. Off-chain data has a degree of better scalability because, like the word entails, it's fully off-chain. With Filecoin, we use on-chain through zero-knowledge proofs to be able to verify that data is actually stored where they are. So today, if you imagine you're storing data somewhere, but you want to verify my data is actually stored somewhere, you have to verify it. And IPFS actually allows for this transaction of data from one place to another to store it, but you also want to verify that the data is actually there. And that's why a lot of people, we use the term not an IPFS, not your NFT, because let's just say a server were to go down somewhere, if you don't actually have access to that CID that owns your NFT, you actually don't actually own the NFT. So I'm just going to give a quick primer, but I'll turn it back to the moderator.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And we'll pass it over to Oliver, if that's good. And if you can share a little bit more about the ZK assets that you mentioned earlier. How are they being used, and how are ZK rollups, protecting user privacy? How does that go back to value for the users?
Yeah, so this major advantage of having data on chain is the ability to access it and verify it. And if you look at the fallout of FTX and half a dozen other CeFi players over the course of this year, there's a huge cost that we pay for the opacity of some of these centralized actors. So there are two sides to the coin. On the one hand, you want to be able to verify data. And then on the other hand, you have groups like Nansen, Alpha, and many players on crypto Twitter who are selling alpha on trade positions, portfolio positions, fingerprinting users, which is ultimately can be a threat to their physical safety or their cybersecurity and safety. So it's a double-edged sword. And what zero-knowledge technology does is it enables you to prove state without having to reveal any underlying data. And so this represents a great compromise where you can say, actually, yeah, proof of reserves is the hot thing right now with the exchanges, in spite of the fact that proof of reserves has been around from like 2015 and no exchange saw that it was a good idea to do it prior. But so proof of reserves are here, and these could be and should be verified using zero-knowledge proofs. So because then you don't have to reveal portfolio composition, etc. We want to get to the heart of the matter, which is, are you compliant? Is your data intact? Are you eligible or not? So authentication systems are one example. And what Panther is doing is enabling private or confidential DeFi interactions. So you can put your assets into the Z asset vault. We wrap and create say a ZETH, and then you can use that ZETH and transact it on a peer-to-peer basis anonymously. Now, of course, in light of, again, I'll reference it for the second time, Tornado Cash, US sanctions, CFTC crackdown, SEC crackdown, the list goes on and on. We are looking at this Web3 space, this next wave, and saying, well, compliance is going to be a major component of that. So how do you enable users to have confidentiality of their transactions to the rest of the crypto universe, but still be able to satisfy regulatory requirements, satisfy institutional or enterprise requirements? And that's, again, we use zero-knowledge proofs in a different way to how Filecoin does. What we would do is enable you to prove and have that data verified that you passed compliance and that your data is stored on something like a Filecoin through an IPFS. And then if you choose to, you can reveal that data. So it's this, it's sort of disarming the double-edged sword and just focusing on the advantages. And that's one of the reasons that zero-knowledge technology is one of the hottest narratives, in the industry right now, and rightfully so, because you can have sort of authentication, you can have scalability, you can have privacy, you can have compliance and disclosure as well. So, yeah, it's a really cool thing.
Thanks. And I think kind of it seems to be a recurring theme is like people inside the data. So I know Carrot DAO is working on some infrastructure for user identification. What are some of the issues with kind of figuring out who users are or sharing or gathering that data?
Yeah. So the reason why we want to do this is because actually we are very good friends with NeoChain. And then we did the US school tour with them. We visited UCLA, USC, Stanford, and Berkeley. So by the time we were giving speech at UCLA, I remember the person next to me, he brought up a very big problem. Like one of his students, he's a professor, one of his students actually had the PhD in their own country. And because their country doesn't have the same verification system as the US, so he had to do another PhD here in the US just to get that degree. So I think this is very, very big problem, and it's very, very fucked up situation. So that's why we want to build this global identification network, so people can upload their information on there, so everything can be transparent, and you can use that anywhere in the world if you want to. And we also want to do it fully on-chain, to kind of avoid the problem that a lot of Web3 companies, right now they require you to put your Web2 data in it. For instance, your name, your email, your Twitter account, things like that. So what they're gonna do really, really frightened me, because I feel like they're doing the same thing as Facebook and Google, all those big companies. They would want to hold their own user data to their own. So that's definitely not something we want to do, and I don't think that's how Web3 should work. So we're going to do a fully on-chain global identity network to avoid those problems and create the conveniency for people to use their data to see people's data everywhere in the world.
And are there specific sectors that you see this affecting? You mentioned kind of education. Are there other sectors that you see this kind of coming in earlier or later?
For instance, driver's license between different countries, and maybe medical records, things like that. So that's basically the part that we want to focus on, is how to use the advantage of Web3, the blockchain, to solve the problem in the Web2 world.
Got it. And I think that's a great way to lead over to Robert. With Crown Sterling, could you share a little bit more about users' sovereignty, their identity sovereignty, and how it can be used for monetization within your platform?
Sure. I think one of the big problems we face in the world today is something that I just was confronted with very recently. One of my close friends ran for Congress. He lost. and he lost by a very close race, but it was in Orange County, California. And I asked him, as the race was going on, how do you know what you know about people when you meet them? Can you know what their position is on things? And he told me, he said, well, I have an app for that. And I said, what do you mean there's an app for that? And he said, oh, there's an app that I can look up every voter in California, and if I pay the extra license, I can get access to everybody in the United States that's of voting age. And I said, what? Let me see this thing. So I, of course, grab it, and I'm like, let me see this. And I look up my name, and I'm like, there's my address. There's 56 pages on me. 56 pages on me. And I'm like, 56 pages. I'm literally reading, and it's strangely accurate. I've never filled out a survey. I've never given any information like this to anyone, and yet it knew everything about my position, specifically, even down to nuance level, on where I stand on abortion, how I feel about China's relationship with the United States, how I feel about COVID, and that I made my employees come back to work before the COVID shutdowns were totally over. So I could be classed as a dissident or something. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that didn't make me feel very comfortable. 56 pages just on me. And what if a regime got in control and said, you know what, we don't like his opinion on things. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm more libertarian. And so does that mean if that part of society becomes like, well, you're on the fence, you're in the middle, does that mean that I'm a bad person necessarily? And this is the strange dystopian stuff we have to start asking ourselves the question of. But guess what? WhatsApp had $10 billion in revenue last year. There's no advertising on the platform. There's no fee-for-service model associated with it. So how the hell did they get $10 billion in sales? Do you know how? Selling all that data. Now, just today, 500 million users of WhatsApp data is now on auction on the dark web for sale. Did you guys see this? It just hit the news today. This has to stop. Right? And the answer to fixing all of this at its core is cryptography. Because the problem is when you have one block cipher that's used across all of everything, that's how you have these system-wide 500 million people's data stolen or sold on the dark web. What we've done at Crown Sterling is we've created the first decentralized platform so that you have the opportunity to control your data. And the messaging part of it is the first part of it. Do you know that all of the chat rooms, how many of you are on chat rooms on Telegram right now? If there's more than 2 people on that chat room, did you know it's not encrypted? It's not encrypted at all. Now, I went on Telegram because I thought it was an opportunity to get away from the censorship that I was experiencing on social media, especially during COVID. And the fact is, none of it is encrypted. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me. And by the way, even the FBI put out a position paper on WhatsApp saying that they can cut straight through the WhatsApp encryption like butter. It's nothing, literally nothing. So we address that problem by taking the nuclear code encryptions and embedding it right into our messaging app. We then combine that in the future with decentralized storage. We combine that's a platform technology that we can layer on top of that a VPN that's also a decentralized quantum resistant VPN, the same encryption used on nuclear codes. And by doing all of that, it actually allows you to encrypt, not just have VPN that obfuscates your location and your IP address, but actually encrypt all of your data, including your search history, your geolocation, all the information that you currently have right now. And yes, Apple and all these companies will be able to access it, but they're just going to get encrypted data that they can't crack in an uncrackable encryption. They won't be able to read it. So we built an entirely decentralized platform so that you can actually take your data, protect it, NFT it, and if you ever decide, you can sell it. Take it to a market exchange. Because if Facebook were to write a check today, just for the data that they sell and the profit they make on the sale of your individual data to you, they'd have to write you a check for $2,400 this year. Did you know you're paying $200 a month to be on Facebook? Is that worth it? That's a hell to the no. So we created a platform so that people can actually have control of their own data in a freedom of speech platform. And the reason why freedom of speech is accomplished on this is because there is no centralized server. If you're a company that has a centralized server and all your information is on that centralized server, as soon as the government comes in and says, under the Patriot Act and Biden's latest executive order, which unilaterally increased the rights of government to surveil citizens without probable cause, guess what? You have to give that data to those government agencies, but not if it's decentralized. If it's spread across 10,000 nodes, and all those nodes have a small fragment of your keys, nobody has access to your key except you. That means the government actually has to follow due process and actually has to follow the constitutional process to get a warrant and get a judge to show that there is true probable cause for you to be surveilled. And you can decide whether or not you actually want to comply with that order or not. We believe that freedom of speech is fundamental to democracy. And we've created a platform so that people can actually have that and maybe potentially even have an opportunity for a universal basic income on our data.
Thanks for that. And so I guess now we'll open it up more to the... You got some supporters in the crowd. And I guess we'll open it more to all the panelists to kind of jump in here. Everyone's kind of spoken about how they use on-chain data, how they integrate on-chain data, how they protect it. What do you guys find as some of the biggest challenges of actually utilizing on-chain data?
I mean, first of all, kudos on that. You know, you really express the values that we all do need to care about, because without our right to free speech and privacy, democracy is seriously undermined. Totally. So, you know, I think that's what Bitcoin's about. That's what Ethereum and DeFi should be about. And I think for me, the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is always in identifying that narrow use case, the real problem that you're solving for people, called the go-to-market strategy. So, you know, there are a million ways that you can have a vision of how we get there, or what there looks like, but actually creating that first product and finding product market fit, it's not an exciting answer, but to me, that's really where it lies. So is the tip of the spear encrypted messaging? Is it decentralized data storage? Is it non-custodial private access to DeFi? Is it compliance solutions or identity solutions? All of these all of these products are interconnected, and ultimately we're sitting at the precipice of technologies like zero knowledge tech, NPCs being scalable and efficient enough to actually be an affordable set of encryption that we use. So I guess my answer to the question, aside from go-to-market strategy and product market fit, is there's a very nuanced set of decision-making processes that you have to go through in order to determine what should be decentralized, when it should be decentralized, what should be on-chain, what should be off-chain, how secure is secure enough, what should be permanent data storage, what should be transient data storage. Because you get those things wrong and you'll find yourself with a whole set of decrypted information floating around which was supposed to be private and isn't.
Yeah, and I would love to jump in here. Who here is familiar with the blockchain trilemma? Have you guys heard about it? So there's really 3 angles to this triangle, right? What blockchain provides is security, scalability, and also decentralization. But on-chain and off-chain really does have trade-offs. And so we can get very technical here, we don't have to, but if you think about it, FTX, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, right? The crypto market has gone pretty red the last few weeks, and that's actually because FTX was so centralized. A lot of people kin everything to FTX, but FTX was a centralized exchange, and that is why the failure of one company failed so many. If it was truly decentralized, we would not be in the red across the crypto market as we are today. The same thing goes for scalability. When things are on-chain, they're less scalable, but they might be more secure, right? So that's always a trade-off when you're building in the blockchain space, if you're technical, to always think about what are you looking for, what are you optimizing for, and how do we also collaborate across different vectors to really make sure that we can really build the best technology for all. I also completely agree. I think decentralization is so key. For us, one of the big reasons why we care about decentralized storage is, if you guys remember, a year and a month ago, Facebook went down on in early October for a few hours. And in those few hours, Facebook actually lost close to 60 million advertising revenue because of how many small businesses were dependent on one server upkeeping all those other servers. And these are not just you and me here in this room. These are small business entrepreneurs that took the risk, wanted to learn technology, wanted to build a business. And that's what happens when you have a single point of failure. And what we're trying to do with Filecoin is we have over 4,000 storage providers around the world running their own data centers. We use blockchain technology to make sure that we can offer the security. When it comes to data storage, we're around 1/100th the cost of Amazon web servers. So when it comes to large data storage, we are definitely one of the most affordable solutions out there. And we've worked with a number of institutions that are very well known, like CERN, for example. We just closed a deal with them, with one of our storage providers. We're working with all the major institutions like USC, Stanford, Harvard on different work together. And so this is not just a Web3 DeFi dialogue. We are really trying to permanently think about storage in traditional places, not just the Web3 space. And so for me, I think decentralization is the future. People are looking for more security. People don't want a central point of failure. And absolutely, my favorite currency is data, because today we are using so much data, as other people have said. And unfortunately, our data right now is in the hands of 4 major monopolies. Everything else is fed into 4 companies. You can probably guess the ones that I'm thinking of. And there's no way around it. And if you're like an entrepreneur and you wanna create the next Facebook, the next Meta, you're probably going to be acquired by that company before you can actually be that next one, because there is so much data that's owned, and there's so many businesses that are built on that background. And that's what I love about the Web3, the DeFi, the crypto space, is people are really trying to find a different way to think about the next version of the internet, where really the power of data belongs back to the hands of people.
Exactly. So before, like, our bigger dream is the global identity network, but our tool right now is providing entrepreneurs and new startups a tool to really have some really good return rate of marketing. because we've tried, for instance, right now, if you're a Web3 or an NFT company, the ways for you to market yourself is very, very limited. You can just find Twitter influencers or do like Facebook or like Google Ads, which is very, very low efficiency. And they claim that they target the people that are like, for instance, you want to find game users, and they claim they target the game users, but you have zero way to verify whether the people that they target are really game users or they're bots or not. And they charge a lot. Like I tried it, we tried it. We used to pay like $20,000 into Google Ads every month. We tried it for 3 months, and the conversion rate was 0.8%. It's like throwing those like $20,000 into the ocean. It's like no difference than that. So I was like, how can we use the advantage of Web3 to solve this problem? So we invented like a on-chain searching engine. For instance, you want to publish an NFT, then we can help you filter out all the people had bought the similar NFTs before from like searching their wallet addresses. And that's much more efficient. And because every single marketing campaign is a smart contract, so people can actually go onto our website and verify each person that participate in this smart contract. So that's how we use the advantage of Web3 to try to solve the problem in the current like marketing industry.
Cool. Unfortunately, we're heading to the end of our panel. So I'll just give everyone the opportunity, if you want to say a quick, 30 seconds on some of the things that people should be excited for within each of your projects to end on a happy note.
End on a happy note.
Yeah, I am very, very excited about a new initiative we just launched this fall called the Public Data Commons, where we are trying to put government data back in the hands of people. If you imagine today, there's a lot of public records that just go down. In fact, the state of Maine, for an entire year, lost all of their citizen records that every taxpayer in this room should be concerned about, because you need to do basic things with your city or your state. And so for us, we are working to back up copies of critical public information that really belongs back in the hands of people, and also make sure, regardless of your political beliefs, that you can verify the data that is being put out there. And we're also doing this overseas in the situation that's happening in Ukraine, where we're using our technology to think about how we can verify that images taken during what's happening in Ukraine can be one day verified in international criminal court from a human rights perspective. We've already done this with 50,000 testimonials of Holocaust survivors, where we don't want those kinds of data to ever be lost. And we are so thrilled to be working with cities and other governments over the course of the next year to really make sure we can keep backup copies of public information that really belongs back in the hands of people. So I'm super excited about that.
Thank you. I think the thing I'm very excited about is that the knowledge now that if we're on social media or messaging apps and it's free, then we are the product. And it's time for us to wake up to that. I think people are starting to wake up to it. I think part of the reason why Elon Musk is making such a big deal out of what's happening with Twitter and why he wants to move towards a decentralized messaging type platform that's encrypted. I'm just thrilled because the first time I've ever been involved in a project that's 3 years probably ahead of where Elon Musk wants to go. It's very exciting that these types of technologies, not just us, there are other companies also that are going to start bringing to fore this notion of decentralized encryption and being able to democratize true encryption, because right now all the encryption we've had in the world hasn't worked. I'll tell you right now, every single one of the encryptions, all the things that we've heard as, there might be a backdoor inside Bitcoin and the elliptic curve, there's a trapdoor function. I was meeting with one of the top cryptographers in the world last week, and I could tell you that absolutely is there. And we have not known this. And a lot of these things that seem like, oh, they must have stolen the passwords. No, they didn't steal the passwords or get the passwords. They actually just cracked the encryption. The notion that this is already happening, and it's always been the case, there's been an encryption layer that's been available for government, and they use almost exclusively for military, and for the government layer, something called one-time pad, which is already quantum resistant. It has specific characteristics associated with it that have to be met. But when you meet those, it is uncrackable. And then all the rest of us have had the type of encryption that we use today on Bitcoin, on everything else. And that's called elliptic curve and RSA, and all of that is broken. it's now becoming widespread, the knowledge that that is true and that our data is highly valuable. So if our data is highly valuable, then money needed banks to protect it. Property and assets need fences and walls to protect it. Data, the world's most valuable asset, needs encryption, true encryption to protect it, and it's time to now level the playing field between governments and individuals.
Well, I think all that is very, very exciting. For me, just personally, I think a lot of great gamified project is coming up. So that's where I think we should pay some of the attention to. And I'm really looking forward for some really good game product, because right now, a lot of Web3 gaming, they just put the Web3 like concept in there, but they are not very playable, and it's not very enjoyable. So I'm really looking for some really good Web3 gaming projects that comes up.
I'm getting excited for V0.5 production for Panther. We've just released a set of our IP under BUSL and MIT licenses, and so the community is now going through a series of Panther improvement proposals to vote on the deployment and the host of our front-end app on IPFS, and we're working through decentralized data storage solutions, actually, with Filecoin as one of the candidates around that, and working on a private voting protocol for DAOs so that we can take the DAO governance process and make that private. So we're working with Snapshot on that. So it's production all day long at Panther.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll be here in the back if anyone wants to come say a quick hello or ask any further questions.